Are you on a journey to discover simple and effective ways to enhance your overall wellness? Are you looking for information on natural solutions that can make a real difference in your daily life and the health of you and of your teens? Well, today I have Ethan Pompeo with me as a guest, and he has been transforming people's lives with these kinds of solutions. So, Ethan, I'm so excited that you're on the program today.
Hey, thank you, Cynthia. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
excited to be on here today and share a little bit about my journey and how I got to where I am today. I definitely experienced health crisis and difficulty as a young adult and teen, and so that resonates with me.
Well, tell us about this health crisis because what you were diagnosed with, I have had students when I was a school counselor, and some of my clients have been diagnosed with this. So tell us about that.
I think that's great. Quite frankly, 95% of people I talk to have never heard of what
Mm,
I was eventually diagnosed with. And this was 20 years ago. I was 13 years old, and I started having these neurological symptoms out of the blue. I mean, I was healthy and quote unquote normal one night. I woke up the next day and I started having these motor tics and this loss of motor function. I would have to do this skip step when I walked, and I'd have to pick up my pencil and put it down and pick it up and put it down over and over again until it felt just right. And I had severe anxiety associated with that, obsessive
mm,
compulsive disorder. All of a sudden, my health started to cascade into this series of neurological symptoms that I had no control over, and we had no idea what was going on. So, our first course of action was to go to our family physician, who referred us to a neurologist, and effectively, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, which now we know
mm,
was a misdiagnosis. Essentially, it was a label that was put on me in order to prescribe me prescription medication and get me out the door.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so that was my life for most of my teenage years. And for about a decade, I had been on and off over 40 different prescription meds. None of them helped me, right? Most of the side effects outweighed the benefits that I felt from those meds. And I was left with a distaste for modern medicine for many, many years. And it was a discouraging, isolating, lonely place to be.
mhm. So you were diagnosed with PANDAS. So I know whenever anyone hears that name, even myself, when I first heard it, I was like, is this a made up thing? What is this? So tell us what does it stand for and what is that disorder? How did they find it and what does it do?
So PANDAS, it raises eyebrows when I tell people what it stands for. It's not the cute, cuddly bamboo munching bear that we all are familiar with. It
Mm-hmm.
actually stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neurological Disorders Associated with Strep. And essentially, what
Mm,
happens is typically a strep throat infection causes an unusual autoimmune response on the body, namely excess production of strep antibodies. And antibodies are one of the few compounds that can cross the blood-brain barrier. Meaning, as a child, these antibodies were produced in such excess as I dealt with chronic strep throat infection and recurring infection that my strep titers were off the charts. Looking back at my blood work, I mean, they were so high, it was absolutely insane. And what
mm,
happened was these antibodies had nowhere to go. They were being produced in such excess, they entered my brainstem and caused inflammation in my basal ganglia, which is the motor cortex of your body. Thus, I experienced this cascade of symptoms that I mentioned, the motor tics, the anxiety,
mhm.
the OCD, disturbing compulsive thoughts, all kinds of issues that wrecked my health and my day-to-day life.
Mm. So how did they finally find this out? Because they think you have Tourette's and you're taking all these different medications, going through life. Like, how did it finally come out that this is what you really had?
Well, it took about a decade of, first of all, trial and error, just going from doctor's office to doctor's office, trying to find someone who actually knew what was going on. After trying several different meds and realizing like this isn't working, I kind of took a step back and contemplated like, what does this even mean, Tourette syndrome, right? We don't know what
Mhm,
causes it. We don't know how to treat it, really, other than giving drugs and like seeing what works and what doesn't.
mhm,
There's no known cure. So like what what is causing this thing? And for many years, we were essentially just trying to treat the symptoms with medication, completely ignoring and unaddressing the root cause of the illness, which was this baseline strep infection and inflammation in my brain that was driving all these symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So the page turned for me when I actually found a specialist who was well versed in pandas. And by this time, my parents and I, my mom in particular, had scoured the internet, read
Mm-hmm.
every book imaginable about these kind of autoimmune symptoms and tics and whatnot. And we had essentially almost self-diagnosed. Like we heard about this pandas thing through some blog
Mm-hmm.
and said, that really sounds like what Ethan's dealing with. So
Mm-hmm.
our Google search changed from like tics and compulsions to pandas doctors, and we eventually
Mm-hmm.
found someone who was specialized in this pandas thing. And on our meeting with her, it was a cold case. It was like, yes, this is a classic case of pandas. Pandas is a clinical diagnosis, meaning there's no quantitative blood test you can take that says, yeah, boom, you've got this. It involves putting together the pieces of your medical history and your blood work and your symptom load and all these different factors, and identifying like, yes, this appears to be a case of autoimmune encephalitis, brain inflammation in pandas. So it can be very
Okay.
difficult to diagnose.
Mm. I never even thought about that. I thought because it sounds like it started because of a strep infection that then kind of goes crazy, that they would just look for that. And then that would be the telltale sign that, oh, this is what happened. But I guess if it was 10 years ago that you had strep infection, it doesn't necessarily mean they would find strep in your body at that point, right? Like when they're realizing that that's what happened.
Well, I think on a deeper level, it's just counterintuitive to put those two together. Like,
Yeah.
why would strep throat cause like all these
Yeah.
neurological symptoms and brain
Mm-hmm.
inflammation? It's like
Mm-hmm.
the problem was in identifying the cause of this illness is like it doesn't really make sense on a baseline level. Like
Right.
strep throat is like sore throat, coughing,
Mm-hmm.
you have it for a week, you get better.
Right.
Antibiotics if you need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it took a long time for experts to put these pieces together and realize like, man, this is actually a bacterial infection that's causing this issue. And so the big indicator was those strep throat titers. That was a clear
Okay.
indicator that, like, wow, your autoimmune system is going haywire trying to treat this infection. Like, your strep antibodies should never be that high. And,
Mm-hmm.
I can't go over the numbers with you, but, like, let's say a
Mm-hmm.
baseline person's strep antibodies are at 200 after having an infection. Mine were over 1400. Like,
Oh, wow.
crazy. So as a result,
Mm-hmm.
like I was very underweight at the time. I was 135 pounds, just, doing my thing. And those antibodies had nowhere to go. I didn't have any mechanism to store them. And so that's when they started to spread into areas where they weren't supposed to hang out and cause
Mm-hmm.
problems.
Oh my gosh. Is there a medication or, what do you do when you have this? Like, what is the typical protocol that doctors use to help with this?
So there's a two-pronged approach that's typically used to treat people with pandas, and the two prongs are addressing the underlying infection. So usually a long course antibiotic treatment to eliminate the strep bacteria for good so that your body has a fighting chance. Like you're never going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to recover if you're still fighting off that infection. So getting rid of that is the
Mm-hmm.
first step. The second prong is addressing the inflammation. So once you've gotten rid of the driver of that inflammation and your body doesn't have to continue fighting that bacteria, now you can focus on ways to reduce that inflammation in your brain and in your body so that you can start to feel better. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference between the Tourette syndrome misdiagnosis and the PANDAS diagnosis is with Tourette's, we were simply slapping drugs at the problem, trying to see
Mm-hmm.
what worked, but we weren't addressing the actual root cause of the problem. We were simply using medication as a band-aid to cover up the symptoms, and that
Mm-hmm.
was not a pathway to healing. Once we identified that it was pandas, it gave us a path forward because we
Mm-hmm.
realized this is driven by inflammation and strep infection. We can target those two culprits, and my symptoms
Mm-hmm.
would start to become mitigated naturally, right? More
Mm-hmm.
holistically.
Right. So you are on this mission and have this company that treats illnesses or discomforts, maybe if they're not like actual diseases, with natural solutions. So, probably because of this is one of the reasons why you got started in that. But tell us about these natural solutions and like how you actually got into doing that.
Yeah, so I have completely transformed my life since I was a teenager. Not that I was living an exceptionally unhealthy lifestyle, but after I was diagnosed with PANDAS, I think the conventional medicine approach that I followed for so many years really normalized the concept of substance use in my mind,
Mm,
right? We were just looking to from pill to pill to pill to medication to prescription to try to see what helps. And once we found something that helped, I mean, I'm assuming I would just be on it indefinitely, right? So
mhm,
I eventually got fed up with that. I experienced physician fatigue. I was just sick of doctor's appointments, sick of pharmacies, sick of
mhm,
medication, and I decided to just back away from that. This was around the same time that I was entering high school, and I started to discover marijuana, and I started
mhm,
using marijuana daily because truly it was the only thing I found that gave me relief. I mean, I
mhm,
knew when I smoked, my tics would go away, my anxiety would calm down, I would feel better, I would be able to just relax, take a deep breath.
mhm, mhm,
Now, I'm not condoning the use of marijuana here because I experienced myriad side effects with that as well, including paranoia and even increased anxiety at times,
mhm,
multiple run-ins with the law, which
mhm,
definitely spiked my anxiety and caused me more grief and problems.
mhm,
Um, I had conflict in my family, because my
mhm,
parents certainly did not condone my use of cannabis, even though they did
mhm,
have a baseline understanding of why I was doing
mhm,
it.
mhm,
Um, there's just so many issues, including health risks associated with smoking and inhaling
mhm,
particulate matter. So I needed a solution that would help me without having those risks and side effects
mhm,
and inherent consequences. And so over time and through my journey, I discovered CBD, which is a cannabis compound, but it's not intoxicating. I call it
mhm.
nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. And
Good.
so my journey led me to this place where I realized I could get the benefits of cannabis without having to smoke or be high or risk my freedom, right? It's a
Mhm,
legal substance, right? It's something that's safe for everyone if it does not contain any THC, the intoxicating compound found in marijuana. So I learned that I could use CBD and get many of those same benefits. I'll never forget the first time I tried it. It was like a wave of anxiety left my body. I took a deep breath, refocused, re-examined my life, and I like to say that CBD was the catalyst for much of the lifestyle change that I was incapable of making when I was stuck in my symptoms and wallowing
mhm.
in that self-loathing and unable to move forward with my health.
Yeah, and we need that sometimes where we just have a clear idea of what's next. So this was helping you so much that you decided to help other people with this same benefit. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was pretty serendipitous actually. I was living in Colorado. I was working on an organic farm after college. It was the oldest organic farm in the state of Colorado, and no, we were not growing cannabis. This was like carrots and watermelons and all kinds of vegetables,
Mhm,
and I just fell in love with the lifestyle. Working
mhm,
outside in nature, getting my hands dirty, eating
mhm,
fresh produce every day, working with new types of people, getting sunshine. It's just so many
mhm,
benefits. And moving from a lifestyle and a culture of like college on the East Coast, everything's so fast paced and competitive and high pressure,
mhm,
to just kind of disbanding from all of that, just enjoying
mhm,
life and having a simple way of life. I fell in love with that. And that's out there actually in Colorado is where I was introduced to CBD. So when I moved back to Virginia, I thought to myself, I need to get my hands on this stuff. It's helping me feel better, and I don't want to go back to like those old routines and those old ways of cannabis culture and all that that had so many negative impacts on my life.
mhm,
So when I reached out to stores, you couldn't find CBD here. This was back in
mhm,
2015. I mean, it simply did not exist. So I reached back out to some friends in Colorado, and they actually were gracious enough to send me some raw materials, some active ingredients, and I started playing around, experimenting with it in the spare bedroom of my house, formulating different oils and capsules and gummies and just form trying to get it into my body any way I could to see what worked best,
Mm-hmm.
which dosages worked best. And, I'd post it up on my Snapchat and tell my friends about it. And pretty soon they were reaching out to me like, what's going on? What are you doing with this? And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Granny heard about it and she wanted help with her sleep. And then Grandpa
Mm-hmm.
heard about it and wanted to relieve his knee pain. And
Yeah.
pretty soon, like the most unlikely candidates started reaching out to me to try this stuff because they were seeing how it was helping me. There was more research coming out about this stuff saying how it combats anxiety and it's a
Mm-hmm.
powerful pain reliever and it has anti-inflammatory properties and you couldn't get it. So I realized there was a need for this stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
I started my business out of the spare bedroom of my house. And today we operate a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility here in Charlottesville, Virginia. And we're currently in the middle of a FDA clinical trial for my CBD soft gels for pain relief. And we're working with physicians and osteopathic surgeons and just really making an impact with this remarkable natural product.
I love that so much. So that's so cool. So what is maybe is there an age limit on like how young someone can take CBD?
It's a common question we get. I am not a doctor, so I cannot make
Mm,
specific recommendations. But what I can
sure.
say is you need to be sure you can identify a source you can trust. That's the
Mm,
whole reason I started making it myself, is because I wanted to know exactly what was going in it. I wanted to make sure it was
mhm,
clean and trustworthy. And there's many brands out there that one make false claims. They say, "Hey, we
mm,
make our products," but they're really buying it from a who knows where in California and slapping their label on it. There's
mhm,
companies that are not doing third-party lab testing of their products, so you don't know that what's in the bottle matches what's on the label. There's all kinds of problems with the supplement industry in general,
mhm,
being largely unregulated. So we do a lot of that regulation ourselves, just ensuring that clients, patients are getting the medication they need to feel the best.
mhm,
And see, anyway, I always recommend if you're looking to give this to a teen or a youngster that you select a brand that is THC free. And
mhm,
the reason is you want to get these benefits of plant medicine, of CBD, without the risks. So
mhm,
by getting a CBD product that's THC free, there's zero risk of intoxication, of getting high, there's zero risk of dependency, really the only common side effect of CBD is drowsiness, which is why people
mm,
use it for sleep, and that's in
yeah.
higher doses. So we
Mhm,
typically recommend, starting with a very low dose, working up as needed to feel your best. If you
mhm,
feel lethargic or sleepy, that could be a sign you're taking too much and you can cut back, but there's no toxicity with this product. I mean, it's been thoroughly tested. There is no amount you can take that could be toxic or hazardous to your health. It's considered very safe. And so that's one
mhm.
of the reasons why it was an amazing solution for me is because I knew if I was going to take it long term, there would be no concerns or long-term health consequences of using this product.
Mm. I was thinking about this while you were talking that so if someone had like some schools do random drug testing or someone's on a sports team and they do random drug testing, this doesn't come up as some kind of indicator or red flag type thing, like well, I don't know if any other than drugs actually comes up. I don't know. So do you know if that would cause anything like that?
Yeah, so if you select a CBD product that's THC free, like our product line is, you will not fail a drug screening.
Okay.
Drug screens test for an enzyme that the liver excretes after processing THC. And
Hmm.
so if there's no THC in your product, then you're simply not going to fail the drug test.
Sure.
I've got,
Okay.
I've got active military personnel and people being drug screened for work, truckers, right? People who
Mm-hmm.
cannot risk failing a drug screen or being intoxicated, who rely on this
Mm-hmm.
product for daily relief. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where the third party lab testing is so critical. You know, with every
Mhm.
product, we have it third party lab tested up to 5 times throughout the manufacturing process to ensure, one, that there's no THC and that,
Mhm.
the potency is correct. What's on the label matches what's in the bottle. And we also test for the presence of any possible contaminants, residual solvents,
Mhm.
bacteria, mold, you know, anything that could present a potential health hazard. This is a product that I take myself. I rub my pain cream onto my wife's neck every night before bed, and it helps her go to sleep. It helps me
Mhm.
relieve my anxiety. And so, if we're putting it in our bodies, we want to know it's safe and trustworthy enough so that other people can use it and benefit from it as well.
Sure. And your company is called Green Valley Nutrition, is that right?
That's right. If you go to my website, you'll notice my logo is a cute little panda bear. I have embodied my health crisis and my healing
Mm.
journey as part of who I am. And
Mhm.
that in itself was transformative for me. I mean, for many, many years, I was just so ashamed of what I was going through. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. I just wanted to go through life and pretend like it wasn't happening.
Mhm.
And that, for one thing, it did not help me in any way.
Mm-mm.
It put all the onus on my shoulders. I felt so much anxiety and pressure based around having to just
Mm.
bear this weight on myself without
Mhm.
having answers, without having a path forward. And then with my use of cannabis, like I faced so much judgment from people
Mhm.
who were close to me about what I was doing because one, they didn't understand or they had a different experience. So they couldn't wrap their heads around the idea that I was trying to use this medicinally in order to get some
Mhm.
relief.
Mhm.
But the tide really turned when I decided to own this and realize, it's okay that I'm battling this thing. When I
Mhm.
realized that, like, not just me, but all of us are facing some kind of challenge or
Yes.
struggle in life, that was a transformative event for me because now I could
Mhm.
relate to others. I could share my story with others. It took the weight off me and allowed me to
Mhm.
take a deep breath and say, like, it's okay, this is who I am, and that's all right. But it also put me in a position to help others, to educate them about pandas, to promote awareness and advocacy for this disease, which experts now estimate affects 1 in 200 kids. So it's becoming
Mhm.
more and more common, and yet people are still being misdiagnosed and mistreated left and right. And
Mhm.
aside from that, destigmatizing this plant that I was condemned for using for so long and saying, look, there is a medical benefit to this. I just didn't know. I just didn't know what it was.
Mhm. So you probably do mail order stuff from your business. And I mean, I live in Kansas and everything's illegal here. And I know there's CBD because we have in my town, there's a CBD American Shaman. I think that's kind of a more of a national company maybe, but I've seen those around and I know that they, are selling CBD products. So I'm guessing people can get, I mean, wherever they're hearing this from, they would be able to order it and get it sent to them and everything's fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're blessed to ship to all 50 states and even internationally. I mean, I've been amazed how people have found us just
Mhm.
through word of mouth and through Google and just my social media and everything that we're doing just to get the word out there. I mean, I'm definitely offering a message of hope, not just for people with pandas, but for anyone with some kind of
Yeah.
anxiety or an inflammation-driven disorder. I can't tell you how many people are giving this to their children with autism, and it's
Mhm.
producing life-changing results for some of them. I mean, you go on the website and look at some of the testimonials we have on there. It is absolutely amazing what people are saying. The anecdotal evidence in itself like speaks volumes about how this is helping
Mm.
people relieve their anxiety and relieve their chronic pain and giving them a pathway for healing. But we're pushing the envelope in terms of empirical data as well with the clinical trials we're doing in partnership with the University of Virginia here, and independent research, educating physicians about alternative medication,
Mm.
alternative treatments, and
I
pandas.
love it.
I work with a number of organizations who are big in the awareness space. So we have our big 5K fundraising event coming up in April.
Mm,
in Washington, D.C., where we fundraise for physician education credits, which essentially gives doctors an opportunity to have a free course that educates them about how to recognize, diagnose, and treat illnesses like PANDAS more effectively.
mm,
Because that was my main issue, is that nobody knew what they were looking at, nobody knew how to
mhm,
treat it. So by educating physicians, we're equipping them and empowering them to diagnose and treat this so that maybe the road for others won't be as difficult as what I faced.
mhm. Well, and inflammation is really the beginning of almost every disease that hurts us. And so I could see that this could be helpful to anyone who, just wants to do something for their own well-being or wellness, and it's a natural thing that they can check into. So we're going to put all the information about that in the show notes. But you also are writing a book. So tell us about that.
I am, yes. So everything we've talked about is kind of like a bird's eye view of my life
Mm,
and what I've learned. I have definitely become something of a pandas expert just through walking this journey for so long. And I get
mhm,
calls and emails every day from parents who are looking for help and assistance and advice. And it gave me the idea, man, I really need to like put all the information I've compiled through my life in a book in a tangible format. So for the last year and a half, I've been writing this book. It's a deep dive into my story, my journey, everything I've learned, body, mind, and spirit, my faith, everything intertwined into this one story that hopefully inspires and also informs people about how to make good decisions for their health. So,
mm,
if you'd like to learn more about it, it's on Amazon. I'm sure you can connect through my website as well to learn more
mhm,
about it. But if this conversation has been something that resonates with you, I definitely think you should look into grabbing the book and reading it.
mm,
Inflammation is our body's first line of defense, right? Ideally, it's there to protect us against foreign invaders and pathogens, but when it gets out of control, that's when it can start to cause problems, and that's what people
mhm,
with autoimmune encephalitis face.
mhm. Well, I'm also going to put the link to your book and all the things in there too, so that people can just get that and get more information. And I know this is going to be so helpful to parents because, like I said, I've had clients and students that have been diagnosed, and I think their families do feel a sense of, I don't know what to do, or I don't know
Sure.
how we're supposed to take care of this. And some of those diagnoses were quite a few years ago, which was probably during that time where no one really knew what it was, or they were maybe being misdiagnosed before they actually got the real diagnosis. So, I'm so glad that you're out there helping because we need that. There's so many things. I mean, there's so many things to know. Doctors certainly can't know everything
Right.
about everything. It's just too hard. And so we do need to seek out people that have more knowledge in that area to help us. And I do a lot of self-diagnosing. That's not always good. But I do a lot of self-diagnosing and then I figure out what my problem is. And then when I go to the doctor, I say, "Hey, guess what? I have this." And so we need to take care of it. And, I let them do their testing to make sure that this is, but I almost always know exactly what I do have because I know myself and I know when things are not going right. And then I look up all the things and so that's how I do it. And luckily my doctor's like, "Okay, let's figure this out." But I think, having your information and they could go to their doctor with this information and say, "We really think this is what's going on." Of course, they're going to need to do their things, but that could be so helpful. And I just love that you have this CBD option that families can try if that's something that they're interested in for themselves or for their teens. And like you're saying, you're not saying as a doctor that it's just like this is something that maybe they could go to their doctor with and say, "We want to try this. What do you think?" Or, what ideas do you have? So I'm just so glad that you're out there doing this work. And is there anything else you'd like our audience to know today?
I always say at the end of the conversation, like, never give up. I don't mean to
Mm,
underplay the significance of pandas and the symptoms on the entire family, not just the
mhm,
patient themselves, but as parents, you feel powerless when you watch your child like lose control of their body like this. it's very discouraging and overwhelming at times. And so, I joke with the parents. They call. They say, "Will this help my kid?" And I can tell in their voice. I think, maybe you should be taking this too. Like, it definitely helps reduce anxiety and stress, and so
Mhm.
it's something that can benefit the whole family without having, the guilt or the risks that we've talked about. So that's why
Mhm.
I'm passionate about it. It's made a huge difference in my life. I don't think I could have gotten from where I was to where I am today without a little relief, just
Mhm.
based on how my symptoms impacted every aspect of my life. I was very much stuck in that position of just not knowing where to go, not knowing which
Mhm.
steps to take. And so
Yeah.
sometimes we just need a little relief, a little push in order to get us from A to B. And
Mhm.
and that's what I'm offering today.
Mhm.
That's why I do what I do. And I'll be honest, Cynthia, it's quite fulfilling to offer a product that helps people and doesn't give them
Mhm.
cancer. You know,
Yes.
so I can sleep well at night knowing that
Mhm.
my products are helping people. And so yeah, if you have questions about this, if you'd like to learn more, my website is a wealth of information for all things CBD and pandas. I have a blog on
Mhm.
there where I write more in depth about this stuff. And if you'd like to learn more, just feel free to reach out. We're here to help, and we'd love to answer
Mhm.
your questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. This was so good for everybody, and it helped me to learn a lot
Mm.
too.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, I was encouraged that you knew about pandas.
Mhm.
You said you've had students who had been diagnosed with it. So that's
Mhm.
encouraging to me that more people are actually like aware of this, and it's not just the kid who's twitching in the back of your classroom, right? You
Mhm.
understand there's what's more of the bigger picture of what's going on. So that means our
Yes.
work is actually making a difference.
Mhm. Well, and I've been seeing, more people talking about it online too, and so
Yeah.
I know that people are seeking information and
Hmm.
answers for this, so I'm so glad you're out there doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-huh, you're welcome.